Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. It is time for the Books That Make You show, and I'm your host, Desiree Duffy, and we have an exciting guest today. We're going to talk about something that has fascinated me since I was probably 8 years old. But first, I want to quickly tell you about our wonderful sponsor, Novel Teas. I hold up this book. It looks like Peter Rabbit, and this one looks like Peter Pan. Actually, that is a tea tin. And for those of you who are listening, you have to imagine this gorgeous, bookish looking tea tin. And inside is, of course, ta-da, tea. So I want to thank Novel Teas. Now, isn't that a cute name? For being our sponsor. And you can find not only these bookish teas, but so many other. They're very, very clever. It's perfect for the tea lover on your list or yourself if you love books and you love tea, like I do. Like, I think everybody who likes to read books likes tea. I think that's one of the criteria. So check them out. It's novelteatins.com and find out more about their wonderful, delicious teas. Okay. So right now, let's get into it. Today's Books That Make You show is going to take you on an Egyptian adventure. Now, like I said, I've always been fascinated by Egypt. I think it's because when I was really little, that's when they had King Tutankhamun's artifacts come to the United States. And there was so much fanfare about it. And I just fell in love with the history and the myths and ancient Egyptians and their monuments. And it's just unlike any other ancient culture. And they've just contributed so much to our modern day culture and our imaginations. And our guest today has written about Egypt. K.G. Ma Ken is our guest today. Now, he is an explorer. He has pursued a career that eventually led him to start a new insurance brokerage venture and partner with the government of Dubai. And basically what started as a little idea 20 years ago bloomed into a passion. Ken sold the business and took on an advisory role and then started putting his KV66 stories onto the electronic page. Now, his ties to Egypt stem from his extensive travels, of course, to the country with his beautiful wife, who has a predominantly Egyptian family as well. And together they have 3 grown-up girls and a unique array of pets that maybe we'll ask him about as well. And he spends his time between Dubai, the UK, and Egypt. Hi, Ken. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. You know, actually, it's tonight here, so because we're 12 hours ahead of you.
Yes, we're exactly 12 hours different, which is, yeah. We've had guests from all over the world. I don't know if we've ever had anybody. You're in Dubai right now, right?
I'm in Dubai, yeah.
You're in Dubai right now. I don't think we've ever had anybody join us from Dubai. So congratulations on being the first.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, I've lived in Dubai now for 38 years. Can you believe it?
Wow.
You know, I left England in 1983, and you know, I remember my first boss saying to me, you know, you stay more than 2 years in Dubai and you'll never leave. And I think he was absolutely right.
Oh, that's amazing. It's such a beautiful, modern, amazing city.
It's changed absolutely. You know, when I came here, the population of Dubai was about 400,000 people. And today it's a city of over 3.5 million people. So, you know, it just shows you what has happened in that time. And it's a big multicultural society full of every nationality that you can think of.
Oh, what a just blessing to be able to see people and the culture and the city change over time. So, okay, let's talk about, because you have written about a topic that is just fascinating to so many people. What is it about ancient Egypt, do you think, that just really sparks and captures our imagination? Because obviously it captured your imagination enough to write about it.
Yeah, I think just like you, when the Tutankhamun exhibition came to London, I remember going with my father and queuing up in a massive queue to go and see these objects. And you want to collect things and read all the interesting stories about Egypt and the mythology. I mean, it's truly fascinating, and something was always drew me into the country. And now I've married an Egyptian, so it's part of my life, and I wanted to be an archaeologist. Believe it or not, I wasn't really that interested in insurance when I. They say insurance is one of those professions that you just fall into, and it's. But I mean, notwithstanding that, I have had a tremendous career in that's taken me around the world, and a lot of that is thanks to the government of Dubai. Because they invested in so many, prestige. Investments, a lot in the States too, and I had a great time really visiting many of these assets and insuring them. So,
Oh, that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about your books. And I might need you to help me with the pronunciations to make sure I get it right. So we have KV66, Siptah's Legacy. Is that how you say that? Siptah?
Yeah.
And then we have KV66, League of the Sacred Ankh, which is this symbol that you have there.
I think you will realize that the KV66, all the Kings Valley tombs are numbered. So I think, if I'm right in saying Tutankhamun is KV63, I think they've discovered. I may be wrong, actually. It may be 62, but I think they've only got 63 or 4 tombs that are known, and so I just took 66 as a random number, and so it's really numbering the tomb that features with through the novel series, and it's an unusual story because it brings a little bit of science fiction into it, and then there's sort of a bit of criminal activities and an adventure for the main protagonist, and a building up of relationships with different people. So, and what I've also tried to do in the story is to bring to life some of the different areas. So you've got the king, obviously the Valley of the Kings, but then part of it goes to another temple in a place called Komombo, which is just further down the Nile, and it's one of those lesser temples which many people don't go and see, but it's quite fascinating. So I brought that one into it, and later on in the second book, I venture even further west. And go into the Sahara Desert towards the Siwa Oasis, and there's a little bit of a skirmish in that area, which is again a very beautiful area, and actually, you've got people there that probably haven't had much exposure to the Western side.
Oh,
very, very, very traditional.
Yeah. So, and you hit on it on one of the notes that I think is fascinating is you have the science fiction element too, because you kind of bring aliens into this, and there's always been.
Well, yeah, it's a humanoid alien, so it's a very it's a bit, I suppose, Trekky in a way, but you want to have some interaction between that character and the main characters in the book, and that, in fact, she becomes a main character. And in the third book, which I've just about finished, she really is predominantly the main character in that book.
Oh, that's fascinating. So you kind of shift focus and shift perspectives. So, and you would describe this as adventure, mystery, a little bit of sci-fi. How would you categorize your
It's,
books?
when you get asked that question, and if you go to any publishing firm, they'll ask you, well, what genre is it? And it's impossible to actually pin it down to one, because it is a mix of the science fiction, adventure, crime.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of everything for everybody, a bit of romance in there too.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah.
So I think it's so interesting that you've researched and you've gone to these places and you have such close ties. Is there anything that you discovered in your research where you're just like blown away, surprised, amazed, something you didn't know before?
I think I took the easier option of trying to work on things that I knew, so it wouldn't cause any difficulties in writing it. Sometimes, if you tackle a subject which you don't know anything about, it will, even though you research it, it sort of, it can be a bit awkward.
Yeah, yeah. It can bring you down a lot of rabbit
So,
holes.
and I'm trying to make it, what I wanted to do is to try and make it one of those easy reads that you want to sort of pick up, maybe read on an aeroplane or a train whenever we can travel again, So it's one of those sort of paperbacks that you will pick up and easy to read.
Talk a little bit about as a writer, and now you are writing the third book. I'm always fascinated by the journey we take as writers because we learn, we evolve, we change, we discover things about ourselves in our writing. What was your writing journey like? Your journey as an author, or what is it like? I should say.
When I was at school, I was probably, my English, we had to do English language and English literature as part of our study in the O levels and A levels. Well, no, it was mainly O levels for me. And I would say that I wasn't particularly good at it. But what I've learned over the years, obviously, is when, having come and built a business up, you do so much writing within the business front, in terms of whatever, you're writing every day, basically. And I think that that's taught me a tremendous amount. And I learned also from my father. My father was very meticulous. He came from one of these sort of old Victorian-like era families. And, they're very, very precise. And everything has to be, the I's dotted and the E's crossed. And I think, following his guidance later on in life, that really helped me in a way. Mm-hmm. But also, as I say, being exposed on the business front.
Sure, sure. And how does your family, you have 3 daughters, you have a wife, and obviously you have an extended family. What do they say to you about your writing career? Do they enjoy your books?
They're my main supporters. They've been tremendous. I let my wife do the first read of the book, obviously, and she does a lot of my corrections for me. And I take her advice and do those corrections. And then obviously later on I do send it to an editor to do the fine tuning. And I've although I'm an Englishman, I've actually had the books written with American English, so it's very much being catered for the American community.
Yeah. It's actually amazing how many differences there are in the language. We had a guest on not too long ago, and her book was called The Sweetest Ladybird, because in the UK they call ladybugs ladybirds, and they had to change it in the US because in America we're like, a ladybird, what's that? So it's really kind of fascinating the way that languages have those differences.
Oh, absolutely.
So, okay, I want to ask you about these unusual pets and things that you might have. But first, I'm curious, do you have any advice or suggestions for young writers or for somebody that might be embarking on writing book or books that are based on myth and history and an ancient culture like the Egyptians?
That's a very good question, and I'll have to actually think a little bit about that because I think it needs a lot of perseverance. You've got to have patience, um, and I think what I did was I had my little black book next to me, and I would be scribbling little notes in it because it's very difficult. If you're going to school, they'll say, "All right, well, you've got to plan this paragraph and that paragraph and do it more structured." But when you're writing a book, you can't do that because the whole thing's got to flow and it's got to be, it's a lengthy document, so you can't plan each paragraph. So the best way is obviously to jot down notes in a separate book and use that as your foundation for each chapter. And I suspect many people do that. I don't class myself as a professional writer, so I think it's trial and error too. But you've got to enjoy what you're writing about because then that makes it easier.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and every writer does it a little bit differently, and that's always an interesting topic too. Writing down notes in a journal, keeping a Bible, especially in the sci-fi and fantasy world. I'm always fascinated by the entire worlds that are built and keeping track of all the magic and the science and everything can be an undertaking all by itself. And of course, some writers are more by the seat of their pants. They're pantsers,
Well,
and some are plotters.
There was an interesting thing, because I was asked to do this extra document for my my sort of what do you call it? My mailing list,
Mm-hmm.
and so that they could download it for free to get a sample of the writing. And so I chose for that to write a prequel to the three novels that are the KV66 series. And that prequel is entirely science fiction. And when I sent it to my editor, he actually said, "Oh, Ken, you're pretty good at science fiction." So that was quite gratifying to hear it from the editor that he actually liked it.
Well, maybe that's the next branch for you because you've got this story here. You can go backwards in time or into these other worlds and have this whole.
You hit it on the nail because the KV66 trilogy will finish with the third book, but I won't spoil the ending of it. There is an opportunity to start a completely new series of novels if I chose to at the end of the end of that third book.
Yeah. Oh, that's just the fun part about writing. It just opens up your imagination. You can go a million different directions. Who knows? Maybe people will start writing fan fiction about it too, like they do for Star Wars and Star Trek and some of the other major franchises. Okay, so I'm curious, what kind of pets do you have?
Well, we have an Australian sheepdog, which is a beautiful dog, and we've got a sort of it's a blue-headed parrot that landed on our gate a few years back, and I think someone had just let him go because they didn't really know how to deal with him. So my eldest daughter is an expert with birds. She does flying falcons and all sorts of she's worked in falconry stuff. So she took charge of this bird, and now he's certainly one of the family, and he's out all day. And then at about sun goes down, he he walks back to his cage. So it's quite amazing.
He flies around and then he comes back?
Yeah, I mean, he sort of doesn't fly very much, but we give him the freedom of the house. So and
nice.
he's got a perch which he can go to with a food stand. We did have some guinea pigs, but they passed away, and now we've fostered a baby sparrow, which is really quite fun, actually. I mean, he's very, very tame. So we were very, and my daughter, she has rescued a number of birds. Actually, we had a seabird which had to use our bath as a house for a while, and then we had a baby crow which she rescued. so all sorts of things.
Lots of birds. Well, maybe that ties back into your writing too, because correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the Egyptian god Horus a falcon or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, indeed.
Now, have you done a lot of research too on the Egyptian gods and their myths and their legends? Does that weave into your writing as well?
Not so much. Obviously, there's reference to the god Amun in the first book, but the plot really moves quite quickly to the 20th century. So then it becomes more of an Indiana Jones type adventure. So the reference bit to the Egyptian side is much more in the prologue or the first chapters of the first book, and so that deals with the temples. It deals with there's some reference to one of the queens, the Queen Hatshepsut. I mean, I don't know if you know her temple. I mean, it's a beautiful temple, or necropolis. Really, it's because it's on the west bank. So you tend to find that the town or the city is on the east bank and the tombs are on the west bank.
Gotcha. And you bring up Indiana Jones, which is obviously another one that has inspired so many imaginations.
Yeah.
What other books or franchises have you read that inspires your writing?
Well, I have to say, I was always a great Clive Cussler fan, and if you read his books, particularly his Dirk Pitt novels, which a lot of them are centered around the National Underwater Marine Association, the NUMA, and he's got that sort of crime, mystery. Sometimes even a little bit of science fiction in that too, So I think I do like his writing, and if you go historically even further back, you sort of look at probably authors you may not have come across, like Rider Haggard, which is that you're talking over 100 years ago, but some of his stories were really interesting, like the Alan Quatermain series and King Solomon's Mines. These were, they were very, sort of open. In fact, they probably also stimulated that desire to go and look for tombs and things.
Yeah. And it's kind of amazing how much you can discover and learn about a culture by looking at their tombs, how they buried their dead and what they thought about the afterlife. It's really just a fascinating topic, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if you actually looked at the Egyptian government. They moved all the mummies from the old museum to the new museum, and they did an absolutely fantastic show for the transit of the mummies from the one museum to the. It's actually mind blowing. It's on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a look. And they did also a similar sort of show for the opening of the what do they call it? The avenue of Sphinxes between the temples of Karnak and Luxor, because the two temples were originally joined together. And there's a sort of several kilometer road between the two of them, which was lined by all these Sphinxes. That too is unbelievable. You know, it's and the music and the dancing. It's a great show. If you like showmanship, you know, that's really good.
Yeah. I watch a lot of, National Geographic, and I'll check that out on YouTube, and just shows about Egypt and the discoveries they're making, even nowadays. And you're right, the government, the people that are in charge of the museums, like the entire modern day Egyptian society seems to revere and honor and have so much respect. And they see these as just amazing treasures. And
well, I have to tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law took me to see a guy called Dr. Zahi Hawass. Zahi Hawass is a very well-known individual. He was at that time the head of the Egyptian Antiquities Department. So I went to his office because I had this fantastic idea of trying to build a proper museum shop. Because if you ever went to the main museum, the old museum, there was a fairly rustic shop. Didn't really sell that great stuff. And there was no coffee or anything like that. So I thought, hey, this is a good idea. And Zahi Hawass is he was very involved with Discovery Channel, I think, more than National Geographic. But I went to present my presentation to him to do that shop, and because I had a very good friend in UK who is a specialty man for museum shops. So, but anyway, to cut a long story short, Zahi Hawass put me in touch with the guy that was doing that shop, and he basically said, "I like the idea, but Zahi will never do anything." So it gathered dust and nothing happened.
Yeah, Zahi Hawass, he's one of those figures. It's probably Discovery Channel where you just see him a lot, especially, going back a few years, he was on a lot of those shows. But okay, can you tell us, I know you've teased us a little bit about what you're working on next with the next book. Is there anything else that we can expect coming soon from you? And maybe you could even tell us when book 3 is expected to drop.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that I've actually finished the manuscript. So it's not quite as long as the other two, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to get that conclusion. So I wanted the characters that had been developing over the last 2 books to have some form of end game. So I managed to do that, and I thought, well, you don't want to pad it out. You might as well, if it works, it works. So even if it's a little bit shorter, it doesn't matter, because if people want to find out, well, what does actually happen at the end? Well, this is it. So I finished that. I've sent it to my editors in the United States to have a look at it. I've done my bit of editing on it. So I'm waiting for that to come back, and then I'll do the cover and the same sort of designs as the first 2. And so I anticipate it should be finished by April.
Oh, fabulous. That is not too far away at all. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And where can people go now to find more about you, find your website, social media, and obviously find your current books that you have out, as well as that novella you teased us about?
Yeah, well, the novella is a sign up for my website. So if they go onto the website and they click into the more about section, then they will be prompted to sign up. Doesn't commit them to anything, but they then get this free novella. So and that's been nicely put together. I had the same design people work on it, and so it follows the other two books. So I think it would be quite a nice little addition, for an ebook. It's not in print version, but it's in the ebook function.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. And can you tell us your website? Can you give us that again?
It's KV-66.com.
Excellent.
So it's just a little bit. I didn't get the KV66 because that was already taken. So I had to do KV-66.com
With the hyphen.
But it's still fairly easy.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Ken, Ma, thank you so much for being with us today on the Books That Make You show. Your books, your writing, everything you're doing is just so fascinating. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. You bet. And thank you, everybody, for being with us on the Books That Make You show. You can find out more about us on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com. We are also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Please ring the bell and subscribe and become one of our YouTube followers. That way you'll always be notified when we have new wonderful guests on the Books That Make You show, like Ken Ma. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.